Welcome back to the Midway Business Podcast, where we dive into conversations with real business leaders about what truly drives success. I'm Jimmy DeMombro, co-host, filling in for Butch Zemar while he is out. And today's guest is DeeAnn Palin. She's the founder and CEO of ONPOINT Business Solutions, where they provide fractional services. DeeAnn has more than 30 years of experience in helping companies with HR, finance, project management, mergers and acquisitions, and executive coaching. She works alongside CEOs to empower their business with results-driven strategies. Her team has helped companies save more than $1 million by building stronger leadership, improving HR systems, and creating high-performing cultures. Welcome to the show, DeeAnn.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
If you don't mind, can you share with the listeners in your own words instead of mine what you do on a day-to-day basis in simple terms and help them understand a little bit more?
Sure. It probably makes sense to tell you why I do what I do before I tell you what we do. I spent the first part of my career in HR, running HR departments for multiple industries. And frankly, Jimmy, I hated it. I didn't like the compliance, the Grim Reaper, the expense center mentality. And so I went back and got my MBA and certified in project management, change management, and started doing growth and turnaround for companies as head of operations. And every hood I lifted, people systems were broken and it was costing companies millions of dollars. And what I realized very quickly is we were undervaluing what you can do with human resource systems and what a driver it is for profitability, for EBITDA. We talk about culture impacts and that kind of thing, but there's some real hard dollar. We get into companies on a regular basis, finding, $500,000, $1.3 million in missed opportunities and just outright cost in businesses.
Very interesting. And in regards to, what you provide, and, I have to admit the word systems come up a lot on this show, and we are a true believer in having them instead of letting chaos run the business. And all of a sudden you're like, what just happened there? But when in regards to what you provide, what makes you so different than any of your competition out there? How do you feel you guys stand out amongst the others?
Well, there's a couple things. There's a lot of things, but a couple key things. First of all, we understand the business system and all of the inner workings of that in terms of how leadership and org structure affect a business process, how marketing flows into sales, flows into execution. We've worked in over 25 different industries. We've got 300 plus years of HR and operations experience on our team. And we specialize in growth and transformation. So I use and am certified in 7 stages of growth research that was developed by James Fisher. And what you just described in terms of systems and the need for systems, there's predictable stages companies go through as they grow in size and what they need to be focused on, what a CEO needs to have in terms of a team and systems and focus. And if you don't understand that, you as a company leader, as an executive on a team growing a company, you can drive yourself right into the ditch. So
Yeah,
we spend a lot of time just looking at where a company is and helping them put the systems in place to get to the next level.
very fascinating. When you work with these leaders, especially if, you sense that they're wanting to either grow the company or turn it into an acquisition, what do you usually find these leaders, these CEOs with their blind spots that they just can't see?
I don't know if I'd call it a blind spot as much as a soft spot. I think all of us have that fear of being found out that we don't know everything we need to know about running a company. It was a lot easier for me running, a $30 million P&L inside of a corporation with lots of cushion around me than starting a business and having to know how to do marketing and sales and compliance and, manage contracts and hire teams. There's just a lot of skills that you just can't naturally have all of them. And I think the first thing I would just encourage CEOs to embrace is we're not expected to know everything. We're not expected to be experts at everything. And the sooner that we can recognize that, embrace it, look around the room and realize that we're not alone in it, the better and quicker you can grow a company by supplementing your weaknesses or places where there's other people that are awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like you believe in knowledge is power. And when it comes to those skills, I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, as the ego steps in and a lot of the leaders out there may not want to embrace something they're not good at. And how do you usually address that? Because it's a psychological thing. And the reality is, I agree with you. You can't do everything, and you need to, be realistic to yourself. But at the same time, finding somebody or getting somebody on board that can help strengthen it is still challenging just the same. But how do you usually address like working with them psychologically about understanding this?
So you said a couple really important things in there, and I'll kind of break that down a little bit. The first is knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and really understanding and owning that, like we talked about. The second thing is, how do you choose great leaders into your organization and make sure you have the right skill sets, the right headset for the stage of business you're in? What a company needs at 0 to 10 employees is very, very different than when you're scaling a business, expanding business lines or products or services, or going national, in some cases, or international. Some of it is really understanding what you need at that next level and being willing to transition or evolve your business. I use Active Index as a great tool to help leaders understand themselves and who they need to hire and integrate into their business. I used to use DISC and Culture Index, Predictive Index. This tool is an evolved, newer tool that's built on an AI base and just has incredible support and research, and it validates itself. I've restructured whole executive teams using it. I do a lot of CEO coaching using it. And it just really helps you understand kind of the DNA of who you're working with, because you've got two choices that you have to get to the bottom of. One is, does this person have the right skill set and headset to get me there? And the other is, are they wired to be successful in the role that I've got for them? So there's a lot of work in the question that you shared.
Yeah, it does sound like it. And I would assume, based on the people that you talk to in leadership, that you come across a lot of times where the leader just doesn't have it and the company has to make some big decisions. Anything that you can share with the listeners out there? Because I know trust is being affected within, corporations these days, team trust especially. How do you address tough decisions? What do you usually share with the companies you work with about dealing with those conflicts?
Yeah, I will say I coach a lot of companies, and I've helped exit over $500 million worth of companies, growing and scaling and exiting across over 25 different industries. And the pattern is similar in all of them. You know, there's some oldies but goodies like Lencioni. The foundation of five dysfunctions is trust. And trust comes down to, are they competent to do their job? And can I count on them to get the work done? And then the second part of trust is, does this person have my back? And a
Right.
CEO has to look at their team to say, is this person competent and skilled for what we need to do next? And do they have my back and their peers back and the employees back in order to get it done? Right. So that's one. I think also you have to really evaluate just that whole mix of what is this leader's role in the organization? What is the culture I'm trying to deploy? What is the performance level that we need in the organization? And the one thing I see over and over and over again is we hire fast and, don't do the right due diligence on bringing people on board and making sure that they're integrated appropriately. We don't spend enough time getting to know the human. And then we take forever to end a relationship and feel obligated to hang on to someone even when they're not invested in the business. And I've never seen a company flourish when it doesn't have a full A player team at the executive level. You get one person who's a drag on a team and it can break trust, it can break culture, but worse than that is breaking both of those and killing your productivity and your ability to grow and scale. It's like having cement shoes.
I love how you articulated that. And it's something that, I feel that is suffering in corporate America. And we talked offline a little bit about how fast things are moving. I feel a lot of businesses get stuck into setting their new employees up for failure. And there's some sort of like ego, I don't even know psychologically, that they'll figure it out. I had to figure it out. But they don't have onboarding systems to help break you into the culture as well as have you understand what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis. My wife went through that when she got a new job, and she told me how fabulous it was and how her new boss was, right there with her, empowering her and giving her encouragement. Anything you can tell the listeners out there about onboarding systems and this struggle to, push these new employees to figure it out?
Yeah, I think there's some really important things that CEOs and executives need to understand as they're growing a business. Hiring isn't just tactical. Every hire that we make and the amount of time it takes us to onboard somebody is a drain on financials. It's not just a drain on the person you're bringing in if you don't do it well. It's a drain on their leader. It's a drain on their peers. It's a drain on customers and your ability to impact outcomes. There's a lot of dollars lost in poor hiring and onboarding and just having terrible turnover because we haven't done that well. Productivity can change from about 30% if we don't do onboarding well, and it can take 6 months to bring someone up to speed well, or you can just facilitate an expedition of that, get someone up to speed a lot quicker, and it can be the difference between costing you 2 employees worth of salary over 6 months to getting someone up and running in 90 days and excited about the company and reinforcing your positive brand externally and being able to actually write more business and deliver more business and outcomes. There's hard dollars. I've got one case. We worked with a company where their turnover was over 100%. And there are industries where it's like that. This shouldn't have been one of them. Right. And they were not hiring well. They weren't deploying their teams well. They were paying overtime and not delivering on services for clients. We cleaned up their hiring system, their onboarding system, and in the first year saved them $1.3 million. So wow. There's real dollars attached to this.
Yeah, it just seems like something that would go wayside in regards to the priorities set within a company. And to me, it sounds like that should be priority number one is anybody that steps through the door should have a good onboarding experience. So they're happy and they're ready to work hard for productivity. Right. When it comes to, the HR department, and being a helpful department instead of a cost center, because I know there's a struggle out there of what can this department do? When and how do you articulate that to help leaders understand and make it productive for them?
Well, I'll share a conversation I had not too long ago with one of our clients. So, because we work with companies that are 20 to 200 million and they're 20 employees up to about 200 as well, we often see organizations that can't afford strategic human resources. And I'll talk about the difference between tactical and strategic. But usually, when you hit about 50 employees, you need an HR person, boots on the ground, to help hire, to help make sure you're compliant, to help with leaves and exits and all of the transactional HR work, employee relations, and managing, training and onboarding, like we just talked about. Oftentimes, they can't afford or don't quite see the value in hiring a chief HR officer. And what we're talking about is that person that helps you build the growth plan for your business. So it's looking at what does the structure need to be for the future? What is our delivery methodology? What are our training systems? What are our benefits and perks and comp plans to be able to execute and deliver on the business that we're promising? And oftentimes they can't or don't hire a chief HR officer. And that's what my business provides for companies. Those senior leaders are really, really critical. You can have a business, for example, we're working with one company who they needed to terminate their head of HR because they were not delivering even on the tactical. And we got into their business and very quickly saw that they had an incorrect benefit plan. Their compensation plan was a mess, so it wasn't giving them the kind of runway and deliverables for productivity. We saved them over $500,000 just in redefining their benefit plan that first year. So you can look at HR as a cost center, or you can see that kind of support as a major value add and a direct line to profitability and EBITDA.
Yeah, that especially with health benefits, because the three, drainers of revenue are taxes and salaries as well as employee benefits. How should employers use employee benefits to strengthen their culture and help with retention? Do you feel like you're seeing, anything being helpful, knowing that healthcare and these health benefits usually on an average will raise 9% and some even larger when they just, go through renewal season and just, sign the paperwork and not even think about what they're signing?
Yeah, I have not seen a single benefit plan that didn't increase by 14 to 38% over the last 2 years. That's a lot of money on a 50 or 100 person employee load. And I see exactly what you're talking about, where a CFO or a controller or a CEO is looking at a benefit design that a broker delivers to them, and they just sign the check, right? They choke down the check. And what I often don't see, and that we do a lot of, is stepping back with the CEO and their executive team, looking at their growth trajectory, looking at their current talent pool, looking at where they want to be and grow into over the next 3 years. And we design what's called a total reward strategy, where we're looking at their benefits, their perks, their time off, their base pay, their leaves, their bonus structure, and taking that whole bucket of money and looking at what's going to drive the kind of behavior and attract the kind of employees, help you retain, help you get the best productivity to get to that growth plan. And if you're deciding on a benefit plan outside of looking at what the business growth plan, you're way too reactive, and it's absolutely a cost center.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense, because that's definitely the world that I'm in. And it just seems that companies are not stepping back, breathing, calming down, and looking at it as a strategy and instead a commodity, and say, hey, what prices for benefits do you have to the broker, and regurgitating another pain point for them the following year. So it sounds like that, you work with the companies in regards to really diving deep into those strategies to help the culture and the retention and help the employees see the benefit of the company and what they provide.
Yeah, and I'll give you a live example because I think live examples make a lot of sense. I worked with a company that was a state agency for 70 years, and they needed to privatize to become a full insurance company, A-rated national insurance company. So you can imagine it was a pretty big leap. It was everything in a state agency you would think of. You know, the productivity was low, the benefit plan was incredibly rich, we paid terribly, base pay was atrocious. So let me tell you what that looked like on the employee side when I walked in the door. People came to work barely in time to start the day. They left the first chance they could get. We had people show up in pajama bottoms. We had super unhealthy people because we were attracting the sickest folks out there because we had an incredible benefit plan. There was nothing to reward high performance. And so we got what we designed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we decided we were moving to a private A-rated insurance company, we had to upgrade our performance. We had to get more cost aware about benefit plans and outcomes. We took a 3-year total rewards design to get us to the culture that we wanted without ripping the skin off of the folks that we had internally, but really deciding what are the behaviors we want out of this workforce. Who do we want to attract? What kind of talent do we need? And we restructured the entire benefit plan and compensation plan. And just a couple of examples. We had a benefit plan that the employee at that time paid $5 for their premium, and it covered every single thing. And we took a more market sensitive focus, so not giving away the town that you don't need to give away. And we put those extra dollars into wellness plans, smoking cessation. We put an on-site gym in place. We put a clinic on site to handle, diabetes management and basic urgent care support. And our productivity went up over 40%. Our benefit costs went down like you can't even imagine. Our EMOD and all of our safety concerns were mitigated. Every measure, including our RX, all of our pharmacy spend, our hospital spend, our diagnostics on early detection of things, all of the indicators improved over those 3 years.
Very interesting and fascinating just the same. So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, knowledge was power for this example, and they were understanding the importance of it, which indirectly helped the culture work harder for productivity, would you say?
For sure. And I will tell you, there's a lot of benefit brokers that are getting smarter about how to inform clients. The old lazy broker would create a benefit quote and dump it on the desk of a CEO about 6 weeks before renewal. And so it was a mad dash to approve, get through the cycle. They had to choke down that 20% increase. There was no diagnostic. You couldn't collect any information from the partners. And now there's AI tools that you can load a census into, and it'll tell you the real spend of your workforce. And a lot of brokers have access to this. It's completely legal information. It doesn't disclose any individual's benefit utilization, but it informs what those costs are and how they're breaking down so that you can get smarter about benefit design. And the best
Yeah.
brokers I know are working with their clients 3 to 6 months in advance to get the analytics in place and help them design smarter benefit plans.
Which sounds like they better get moving, right? Because we're in the world of benefits. It's approaching quickly. Why do you feel great employees leave their companies even when pay and benefits are competitive? What have you seen?
The first thing and the most obvious is A performers, those top notch, top tier high performers, will not work for B leaders. They won't work for lower productivity, crappy leaders that don't stay on their game and lead well.
Right.
A players don't work for jerks, they don't work for incompetent people, and they don't want to sit around a room with a whole bunch of other poor performers and have to carry
Yeah.
their load. So you might hang on to the wrong employees, but you're going to lose the best ones.
Very interesting. What are you feeling the current challenges are right now with leaders and the economy? What are they facing as the biggest problem that's really going to face them in the next year?
I think a couple of things show up across all industries. It's do we have the right tools and systems in place to create productivity and performance? Do we have the right people in place to execute? And I often see short-sightedness or old thinking about what an employee looks like. If you're not working with AI, if you're not working with multinational employees from the Philippines and Mexico and Africa to do back office kind of roles, if you are not thinking about gig employees, employees that want to retire out or work part time or work on projects, if you think your only employee is the one that shows up in the seat 8 to 5, full-time employee, you are missing about 60% of the market out there and you're killing yourself on cost.
Very, very interesting. You mentioned AI, and I know it's the talk of the town in the marketplace, and there's a lot of people, very frustrated with it or, trying to figure out what it's all about. Any advice you can share with the leaders in regards to taking and at least addressing that tool right away?
Yeah, I will speak from my own experience. AI can be incredibly intimidating. There's a million people out in the market trying to seize the day. And so who do I trust to put AI in my building? Is the cost structure appropriate? Are they really good at what they're doing? Do they understand my business enough to help me with it? And I put my team to work. I put myself to work. I started using Chat GPT and Claude, and we started getting into Perplexity just to understand some of the basic tools and see where it could apply. I've since hired someone on my team who's an AI expert and data analyst, and he serves and is available for my clients to help build AI tools and repositories. I've got a meeting later today to work on our own business models and enhance what we're doing with AI. We're a long ways from being experts at it, but we have really stepped into the chasm to learn what we can do and how we can use it. Everything from simple desktop management to our client tools. We have tools and templates we work for and develop for clients. And in the old school days, you would redevelop every time you have a new client, or you would start with a base, Word doc or Excel spreadsheet and, have to build or tweak that with your own hands. And now you can plug all of that data into AI, have it use the intelligence and the memory of your client or the past work, and update tools in, matters of minutes instead of days. I had an
Yeah.
example, last month we were working with a client. We had what we called Operation Take Back. The founder CEO passed away. They had another CEO in the business and were running it into the ground. And my company got hired to help them clean up, put a new CEO in place, fix their systems, fix their security, fix their software issues, hire a new HR team, clean up benefits, basically everything. And we put a plan together, a crisis management and integration plan together that in the past would have taken me 4 months to develop, and I would have had to call lots of experts to help with it. We designed that thing, the framework, in Claude, and used best practices from lots of industries and lots of places, and then built the tool to be streamlined for this company and called the experts in. And I saved this organization hundreds of thousands of dollars just by using tools and best practices that AI is intended to leverage.
Yeah, I like how you have emphasized that word, because it is just a tool, and I think at least what I see a lot of is, people are thinking it's going to take jobs, but the reality is, no different than what you just shared in your own experience. You hired somebody to manage it and manage it well, to the point where you're helping your customers with things that you probably didn't even think you were going to help them with. And to top it off, it's a tool, it's a spreadsheet. It's an article you wrote. And the reality is it's just not push the button, and it's done. It's like, you got to be involved. Otherwise, it's not going to come out the way you hoped it to in the regards to the quality and the branding that you provide, which is very, very fascinating. DeeAnn, you have provided so many great suggestions and tips today. I know the listeners are going to appreciate this, and thanks for spending the time with us today. If they want to reach out to you directly, what is the best way?
Is to go to our website. It's onpoint.com, and there's a connect with us somewhere, and that will tell you most of us that would like to not be utility that is great assessment on their business. It's not a set of business from help them represent and where they're and if personality assessment is something you're really interested in, we've got a incredible AI-based tool called Now. That's then I think I'm going to offer to the CEO and the executive or anyway.
I love that. It's a great offer. Thanks again, DeeAnn, for your time today. We'll see you on the next episode of Midway Business Podcast. And remember, leaders, keep moving forward.